Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new, fresh episode of Real Business Roundtable. Today, we actually have a guest. Today's guest is Joe RUOTOLO of Brewery. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. So today's topic is going to be how to grow a restaurant, how to maximize revenue for your restaurant. So you can apply all of this to any business, but specifically in Joe's situation, he's had great success with his restaurant. So tell us, Joe, a little bit about yourself, your restaurant, what got you started?
I've always had a passion for barbecue and brewing beer. I started brewing beer at a very young age, not consuming it, however, very passionate about the craft and the science of it. My early years, I started off in trade schools, went to a technical school, learned welding, pipe fitting, made a great deal of money doing that. And that was also gave me the expertise in what I needed to do when I wanted to start my own business. So I learned a lot from business owners throughout the trades that I was working in. I always watched the owners and people close to the owners to see what they did right and what they did wrong. So I didn't have to repeat that.
Yeah.
And that came in very handy when I opened up my own business, and I realized, wow, I understand now why they did what they did. I didn't understand it back then, but I understand it now. So, and those skills came in very handy when it came to home ownership and especially building out a brewery.
All right, so let's kind of get into, I know first and foremost, a lot of entrepreneurs and small business folks, and even people who don't even own a business yet, and they watch the show, like what inspired you to start this restaurant? Was it your passion for beer making? Or was it like...
It was to work for myself, to be my own entrepreneur. I didn't want to work for someone else. I knew I wouldn't get and meet my financial goals working for someone else.
Exactly. That's the thing that somebody, when I was young, I was like probably 16, 17. I remember bumping into this guy that had a really nice car. Back then, it was an NSX. Remember the NSX?
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, oh, dude, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I own a fiber optics company. I was like, oh, and I remember he said that to me. He's like, dude, if you want nice stuff, you got to work for yourself. I was like, wow, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Like that inspired me. So you started Brewery. You also do barbecue, and you do more of a Neapolitan style pizza. You got the official oven out back. Tell us a little bit about, what, like when you started the restaurant, you were at X. What did you do specifically for your restaurant, your case study? What did you do specifically play by play to grow your restaurant? And I think it's important for people to see this because this is a prime example of someone that took the steps, that is a restaurant owner, that did the right things to position their business for next level success.
So one of the biggest things I did was I watched what competition was doing.
Yeah.
And when I decided to open up a brewery and add the food aspect to it, I wanted to do something that no one else had, which is barbecue in my area. It's hard, not a lot of people will do it. It's time consuming. Well, I took that challenge, and that's what kind of set me apart from the Italian places and the burger places and just even the pizza places. Now, even when I decided to move forward with everything and try to take it to the next level, I found that pizza was great. I already knew half the recipe because I deal with yeast every single day, and I could use the yeast byproduct of my beer to help me make my own dough. And so I went out on a limb and I said, I'm going to take this risk. And however, one of the things I don't know how to do is I don't know how to market it, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to do that. It's time now to hire the right people to do that for me. I was at a point in my entrepreneurship where a mentor always told me, don't worry about if you don't know how to do something, you can always hire that person to do it for you. Delegation, right? One of the biggest rules of leadership is delegation. Yep. And when I let that part go, and a lot of it was letting go to the people that can do it, that's where things really started to move. Now, I was doing good. I had a good business. We had a great reputation. Everything was, the status quo. It was doing good, but I knew it could do way better. I had a website. I didn't really understand the website, didn't really understand the back end of the website and what drives the website. I had a decent website at the time, but there was no gas, there was no fuel behind it. And that's where I'm like, okay, not my wheelhouse. Got to send that over to someone else.
That's a big thing with small businesses and especially restaurants where they look at the thing that they see online and they're like, I have a website. Like almost like that pocket is filled. Like that's okay, that's done. I have a website. But then you step back and you're like, is the website driving revenue? Yes or no? Is it driving traffic to your menu? That's a big thing that people don't realize. Like they'll go to like these cheap do-it-yourself website platforms. I won't name names, but you know, they'll pay the $99 a month and then they have this thing up. There's nothing being pushed. No one's promoting catering. No one's promoting dine-in. No one's promoting all the different silos within a business that you can maximize to really round things out and get your revenue to that next level. It's that piece of when you increase visibility that makes it a million times more valuable than just having a static site.
Right, just like any, like the way I look at it and the way I bring this up to other entrepreneurs too, that says, well, I'm going to start a business, but I already got a website and it's doing fine. I don't have to do anything with it. Would you go into an F1 Formula car racing without a team?
Exactly.
Right, you have a great car, you have a fast car, but who's fixing it?
Yep.
Who's gassing it? Who's repairing it? Like it's like that.
You got to have the pit crew.
Yes, you got to have the pit crew. And if you don't have just have a website up and you think people are just going to find you, that's just not how it works. You really need to have the people driving people to that website.
I got off the phone with someone today that I was really surprised that they felt that just because they had that website that it was fulfilling everything that they needed. And I'm like,
and that's one of the biggest mistakes I made. Well, it wasn't a mistake. It was more of an ignorance for me because I'm like, oh, I have a website. I should be good to go. Didn't really know anything about the back end. Because, you know, when you have friends and family help you with this stuff, oh, we'll get you a website up. Oh, it looks good. You think you're all set until you learn and realize that, well, that's just part of the puzzle, right? It does.
Oh, yeah.
It's a much more involved than that. And again, I tell people too, when they say they're going to do their own website, I'm like, you might want to consult with a professional because maybe you can build a good website, but who's gonna monitor it? Who's gonna work it? Who's gonna do the SEO? Who's gonna do the back page? All that stuff I've never known, and it's grown my business exponentially.
So since you know us becoming working together, ballpark, like what was the multiple you saw an increase?
So, you know, when we first started, you know, obviously in the beginning it was a little bit slow for the development and it takes time to move that. I tell people that are going to get into it, I tell them to be patient. They have to be patient for the first year. Oh, yeah. And so it was about the first year. Now, year two is really where I saw the growth. And it really started ramping up about mid-year on year two. Year three, right to the top. So threefold.
Nice.
Yeah. So
nice.
we're hoping, you know, 2025 will be our biggest year.
Wow, that's amazing.
I only wish I knew about this 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I've had people say,
Yeah.
I wish I knew about this 2 years ago or 3 years ago or whatever. So, but all we can do as entrepreneurs is when we discover something or we identify a step that works, we can say, okay, let's move forward in a positive and productive direction. I always tell my clients that, like, hey, let's move forward, positive and productive direction moving forward. Don't worry about,
You know what? And I tell people that too. You know, the power of positivity is where it's going to be. You know, and you know, an older mentor has always told me, when you get into business, don't worry about failing because everyone out there is doing that for you.
Yeah.
Don't worry about them, right? Because if that's what you focus on, you will fail. If you focus on failure, you'll fail. And if you're worrying about what everyone else is doing and not worrying about what you're doing, that's another trap.
Oh yeah.
You know,
You got to focus on what you're doing. How can you drive value? How can you better serve the customer, the client, and just how to make your offering irresistible.
Right. And, you know, on year two, when I started to see the growth and I, you know, we implemented the pizza oven, you know, it was a big risk for me to take out, a $60,000 loan. Little did I know that was, was a 5-year loan, and I was able to pay that back in less than 4 months.
What?
Yeah, 4 months. So
holy smokes.
Yeah, yep.
That's good. That's a good.
Yep, and again, that was, a lot of, being positive about it, knowing I had a good product, knew I was going to be able to make that payment comfortably. And then I was like, okay, well, this is better than expected. So pay off the loan, beat them at their game with the interest. And and now when I tell people that if they want to go, if they're afraid to spend 60 or 100 grand, most people will go blow that on a car, and that returns them nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So 60 grand or 100 grand in the restaurant world, and in my world, this is a small amount of money.
Oh yeah. In regards to the website, the thing that I think a lot of small business folks, they don't realize, that I know you mentioned about back end and stuff like that. If the people watching, if you want to understand like what it is aside from just the website, it's the content that's on the website, how it's organized. So for example, if your restaurant offers catering, which you should, a lot of people sleep on catering, a lot of opportunity with that. If you have a page on your website dedicated to corporate catering, function catering, private catering, now the content on that page is related to catering. Now you have photos on that page with a file name related to catering. It's all focused on catering. So what I'm trying to get at is when Google crawls those pages, it can identify what you're about. And that's really when Google's crawling your website and it's really trying to understand what it's all about, you want to make sure that you have pages dedicated to that. And then you need to build the popularity of those pages as well as the relevance of those pages by mentioning it off of the website. Like stuff that we've been doing recently with you is, investing in press releases, getting your name out there, getting you mentioned outside of the website. Because you have to remember, Google's going to look at your website, but then also there's a validation step where they say, well, what you say here could be bias. I want to verify it over here and over here and over here. Then when everything checks out, then you start to move up. Then you're noticing you're getting more traffic. And that's a thing that I feel that small business owners, restaurant owners need to maximize, is to understand that website is a vehicle. You can have it sit there in the garage with no gas in it.
That's it. Yeah. And it's really educating, I believe, the customers and potential clients too on that, because they contacted you for a reason, because they don't understand. Right.
Yeah.
So it's really about how you educate them and then let them, do a little bit more research on their own. And, there's other different platforms that they can use. However, what are you going to get for the quality, right?
Exactly.
So if you're spending $1,000 here and you're spending $99 here, well, I as an entrepreneur, I know something's wrong. Okay, there's a difference in value here, right? Yep. So you get what you pay for.
I've had people come to me and go, yeah, I'm paying $50 a month for this. Yeah. This is outrageous. And I'm like, well, if I drive another 500,000 to 1.5 in the next 18 months with what I'm proposing, isn't it worth it? Yeah. And then you see their gears going.
Well, they hear that and they're like, oh, it's too good to be true, right?
Exactly.
Right.
People all the time, they're just, because they're comparing me to, or us to other people that they kind of worked with in similar industries. Like you got the guy in his basement that's whipping up together websites. Okay, and then say he doesn't have a team and he's only limited to just putting together a website and hosting it. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a different beast. It's like a Toyota Corolla versus an F1,
If someone comes to me and says, oh, my brother-in-law or my father's going to build me a website, I tell them they're building 10% of the website.
Exactly.
That's it, 10%. You're going to get something that looks good, and you're going to get something that you can show all your friends and family and put it out there. No one's going to know it exists.
Yeah, what's challenging for my industry and what I do is sometimes people will just go by what they see. This is what we go by. They'll look at like social media posts, blog posts, the website itself, and they're like, what's going on? I always tell people, focus on two things, your analytics and your cash register. Is revenue coming in the door, and how do the analytics look that are going to your menu? That's very, very important, because if you see those numbers rising, right? And then you can kind of look at, okay, my sales are picking up. Okay, this is a portion of these people. And then if you really know how to read analytics, you'll have direct traffic. These are people that know your name. If you're working with a growth agency, not really an area that they should be taking credit for, because those people already know your name. But organic searches, people who had just found you because they typed in restaurant near me, barbecue near me, brewery near me, pizza near me. That's the one that shows you, hey, they did a blind search and they found you.
Yep.
That's the key. So some people think like, oh, if you Google my name, I show up. And it's like, no, people, you want to be seen for what you do, what you offer, whatever it might be, pizza, barbecue, beer. Sometimes people might type in bar near me. That's a ton of traffic. I do want to kind of dive in because, you're a restaurant owner. I want to talk about revenue silos. So within a restaurant, what would you say your top revenue silo is?
So definitely in-house.
Dine in.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're a brewery, so we don't do any wholesaling. We get everything retail.
Okay.
Dine in would be, I would say 75%.
Now, right now, as it stands, so before going into a growth program, did you capitalize on catering, or just kind of took it as it came?
Took it as it came. It wasn't the highest priority for me at that time, only because when we didn't see the demand for it. However, that was partly my fault because we weren't out there trying to go and get it. No one even knew about it yet,
That's
right?
the key.
So that I'll own that one. But now that I see, the catering growth it's right now, it's seasonal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So June and July are our biggest months, believe it or not, when it comes to catering. And then over the winter time is, believe it or not, our busiest time for regular retail sales, not catering, because we're doing a lot of graduations, a lot of birthday parties, summer parties and whatnot. And then, we do get a few, private caterings where people will take over the whole tap room for themselves and their family and whatnot.
And then, so in regards to that, so like functions,
Yeah.
percentage wise, what would you say?
10%.
10%?
Yeah, see, we're not a huge establishment, so we don't have our own room for that. We got to do the whole
Yeah.
tap room and brewery. So that's really not our business model. More of a dine-in and takeout.
Do you do any DoorDash, like
We do.
delivery
We use a
stuff?
third party like DoorDash.
Okay.
And really, do we make a little bit of money on that? We do. We do lose quite a bit of money on that, but I use that purely for brand recognition. Because they can only get our food, they can't get the beer because of local and federal laws against alcohol and a third party moving that around for us.
Yeah.
So if they love the food, they're more apt to come in, and I can capture them as an in-house, and they can have our proprietary beer.
What area of your business, do you plan on maybe one day expanding to another location?
Yep, we just had this conversation with the landlord yesterday, so we're looking possibly at about $150,000 renovation on the next unit and combining it. Again, it's preliminary. We still got,
okay.
So we're looking at that. Yeah.
Wow, that's going to be amazing. Because it's already, even though it's smaller, it's nice. It's got a nice vibe.
Yeah.
I like it. I'll go there with my son occasionally. Obviously I get some takeout, but I feel like if you expand, that's going to make that place even more attractive.
Yeah, we're looking, I want to be careful with it too, because I don't want to lose that vibe, right? So
Yeah.
if it gets too big, sometimes it loses that.
It gets a little bit colder.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it gets too, you get like that, like the guys up in Merrimack, kind of that wide, big open feel. It's it's less warm.
It's less warm. It's less personable as well. So.
Yeah. So, but knowing that the size of the other place, I don't think it'll cross that barrier. I think you'll be good. I think you'll be
so
good.
too. And I'm doing more like of an open concept too, where the bar is only going to be 20 to 30 feet from the last table. So the bar would be able to see everything. And it's not so far away that you're going to get lost out there. Yeah.
So aside from website and driving traffic with search engine optimization, which a lot of people know about, and there's different levels of search engine optimization, tell us a little bit, because I know you did some features with some influencers. Just share some of the insights on how powerful that can be by using influencers that you've experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. So I used a couple influencers, and that's great for a great push.
Quick shot.
A quick shot, right? And you will have a line out the door. If you choose wisely, right? You got to find, who who fits your, your business model and you can jive with and has the same type of energy as you. And definitely hands down using an influencer for that first shot and get the notoriety and but be prepared. Be prepared because it is, you got to make sure you're staffed and be ready, because the last thing you want to do is pay for that influencer and
run out of food.
Not even run out of food. You want to make sure you're going to uphold that level of service.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And when you get flooded, you got to make sure your staff is prepared for that.
Yeah.
Because the reason you got an influencer is because you were slow and you could handle slow. Mm-hmm. It's a different story when you can handle fast and it happens like that.
Yeah.
So you got to be prepared for that. We were ready for that. Phantom Gourmet was one of the biggest ones.
Wow.
And they're good about it because they let us know a week ahead of time, hey, it's airing. So like, okay, well, we're ready for this. We're fully staffed, fully stocked up and whatnot. Just a regular influencer, Instagram or Facebook, you never know when people are going to see that. You don't know how many people are going to see it and when. But when it does first go out, the first, I would say 2 to 3 weeks is pretty heavy. But it'll die down. But then for every maybe 50 to 60 people that come through, if you can capture them again a couple more times after that, you got a lifetime customer. So hands down, recommend it. If you're going to do an influencer, do it.
Yeah. So to anybody who might be a small business owner, restaurant owner, and you want to use an influencer, some of the things that I would recommend is, like Joe said, look at the demographic. What type of content do they have? Who are they gravitating towards? What area do they serve? Are they local? Another really important thing is when that influencer does that feature, try to maximize it by highlighting. And let's say you have a bar where you serve beer, wine, or cocktails, right? Make sure they highlight a dish, at least a cocktail or something. Like you did the espresso martini. Mm-hmm. So like stuff like that, like make sure you maximize the opportunity to cater to someone that's more leaning towards going out for a drink or having some food of some sort, whether it's barbecue or pizza or whatever. You want to make sure that when you do invest that money with the influencer, that you're kind of maximizing the opportunity for that feature. And second thing is get permission to boost or reuse that video. If someone's going to come out and shoot it, get a copy and permission. Yes, it doesn't have to be something formal. It doesn't have to be like a lawyer letter or whatever. It just simple email that says you got permission to reuse it. And then you can post it on your TikTok and boost it as much, and you can control how many people see that, and you can use that and leverage that. So influencer is really, really powerful. Making sure that you're consistent with your social posts. I can recommend right now to all restaurants that you want to highlight what is it you're known for? What are your signature dishes? What are your signature cocktails? What wine would you want to pair with this dish? Like I just spoke to a fine dining related restaurant, and he was kind of talking about the food, and I was like, hey, you have a whole bar right here. Talk about what wine pairs with this dish. And then in the video content, talk about a signature cocktail or something, right? Maximize, because when you make that social content, you got to cater to different audiences and stuff like that. The other thing that I think is really important and you've actually leveraged is multimedia. A lot of people just leverage photos. You actually have, right when you land on your website, which is amazing, I love it, people can feel the vibe of your place.
Movement.
Right when they land it. So the whole backdrop of Joe's website is a nice, beautiful, the whole backdrop is a whole video panning his bar. Cam just dusted off his shoulders because Cam was the one that produced it. So like you see the whole picture of his bar, you see them drizzling the olive oil on the pizza. You can like feel it and taste it, and you see like the burnt ends and the barbecue. You literally, like, I've shown your website to a boatload of people. Every single person goes, whoa, wow. That website makes me want to go there. So like it's doing its job. So if you are a restaurant owner, and it doesn't mean, this isn't a sales pitch, you can use anybody you want, but just make sure when you hire that person to help you grow your restaurant, the whole backdrop highlights all the attributes about your restaurant that would drive somebody to want to even go there. Remember, seeing is believing, and when people see it and you whet their appetite, they're going to want to go out. And even if they're far away, this is another big misconception. Oh, I only need to advertise 5 miles around my restaurant. That No.
So I like to advertise 60 to 90 miles out.
There you go.
And we're a brewery, so we're a destination. So when people come up around the holidays, people are like, oh, we're just going to get local traffic. No, you got to understand that when it's the holiday season, people are traveling. And where do they want to do when they want to get away from the family? They want to go to the brewery and drink.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
yeah, so that's why I don't want to go too far out. Like, I don't want to go nationally or anything like that. It doesn't make sense for a brick and mortar. But however, when people we get people up, I watch the demographics. We got people up south of Boston that'll come up on a weekend because we're a brewery, we're a destination.
Yep.
So it's a place to go, take the dog because we have outdoor seating. People will travel for that. So
Yeah.
don't limit yourself when you're looking at your demographic, but keep it realistic, right? You know?
Yeah,
I'm a foodie. I just drove down to the South Shore for oysters down in Duxbury because I love oysters. I mean, I'm sure they weren't advertising way up here in New Hampshire. I'm like, let's go for a ride. Don't limit yourself but keep it realistic.
I used to love oysters. That day ended. I got really, I know I love them.
Yeah.
I got so sick.
Yeah, you got a bad one.
So I'll never forget that. And I felt it probably 20 minutes after eating it.
Yep.
I was like, it was a really hard pressure on my top of my stomach. And I go,
I never got a bad one. Oh, wood. So
thank God. I got to be careful with oysters, but I haven't had them for probably 3 years since I got sick. Yeah. But in regards to radius, you're absolutely right. I always, when I talk to a restaurant owner, sometimes they're like, yeah, just 5 miles. No one's going to, and I go, you need to treat your place like you said, like a destination.
And and I'll touch on that too when business owners say, 5 miles, and they say, no one's going to come here. Well, that's a self-limiting belief. And
absolutely.
That mindset is really going to hinder your performance and your growth, right? So you got to speak it into existence. So if you think that you're going to talk like that and get success, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you're limiting yourself. You're just like, and it's self-limiting beliefs. It's like, I can only do 5 miles. And it's like, I think so at the same time, aside from specializing in the stuff I do, I think like a customer. I think, what would I react to? What would I want? Where would I go? I've went to Connecticut to go try something. You've heard of Bears?
Bears, yeah, I know Bears, yeah.
Yeah. So I love barbecue and I love a good brisket, and Bears in Connecticut does a corned beef brisket around St. Patty's, and I have to try it. It's insane. So you take the corned beef and the whole brisket type of texture, and it's really, really good. They only do it around St. Patty's, and I always have to make sure I go out and get that. But that is a destination. So I just drove 2 hours. Think about that for a minute. I drove 2 hours to go try that brisket. Same thing goes for any restaurant, not just Joe's. If you have a restaurant, make a signature dish or be known for something, right? And if you don't have something, try to be creative and come up with something. Like you have the Fred Flintstone.
The big beef rib, and we're known for that. And that thing takes up the whole plate, and in the brisket pizza. So we incorporated a lot of our barbecue items on the pizza, which would be very difficult for anyone else to do because they're not taking the time to smoke a brisket for 15 hours just to put it on a pizza. So we kind of had that working for us, and people will travel and say, hey, we're just here for the brisket pizza. Wow. And that's one of the things that I touched on the influencers. We highlighted the brisket pizza. Everyone wants to try the brisket pizza, and that was also featured on Phantom Gourmet. So that's like a destination item where people
will go.
Yes.
They want to try it. And I said something to my son about the big Flintstone beef rib. It's literally like this big, and it comes on your plate, huge slab of meat on the bone, and it just falls off the bone, super, super tender. Great job on that, by the way. And my son he's a big kid. He's got an appetite, and Alex just punishes it. He goes, oh, Dad, that's really good. And he'll bring it up from time to time, and he'll be like, hey, let's go get that, let's go get that Flintstone rib. But yeah, so all in all, what would you, for aspiring entrepreneurs, not people that already own a restaurant, but aspiring entrepreneurs, you took that step, right? What would you recommend to aspiring entrepreneurs that want to get into something? like, how would you, like, getting through self-limiting beliefs? Because people, they'll put it off and they'll go, I don't know if I could do that. Like, even like, for example, this show, I put it off for years. I was like, I don't know. I was like a little bit hesitant. I'm like, you know, I don't know. And then there was just one day I was, you know, I just was like, you know what? Let's F it. Let's do it. Let's just Nike, just do it. Just boom. And we bought the stuff, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like overnight, but I got the stuff. We kind of sat on it for like a couple weeks, and then we're like, okay, let's get going. Let's set up something out back. And, but share with the audience, like, you as an entrepreneur, what would you give for advice to aspiring entrepreneurs that want to break through that hump of actually doing it and taking that first step? What would you recommend? Like, share like something like what pushed you to go to that level where you said, screw it, I'm going to start this.
Well, you know, there was many years where I was stagnant, doing good, paying the bills, not in the hole or anything like that. But then I realized, okay, it's been 3 years like this. Something's got to change, right? So I got to change, and growth is uncomfortable, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I tell people, the step that you're afraid to take is the step that's going to change everything. And if you can live in that mindset and ask the right questions, get the right people involved, and be ready to make that big step that will change everything. So, you know, if you want to change, you have to pivot, and you have to go somewhere where you're not comfortable, right? Because if you're going to be comfortable, you'll stay the status quo and you'll stay right there. And another thing I tell young entrepreneurs too is the answer is always no unless you ask. So always ask the questions, because if you don't ask the questions, the answer is no, right? And that might sound a little negative, but if you don't ask, you're never going to know. It's about what I see in younger generations that say they want to start a business, and I hear it year after and year after. I'm like, listen, you're saying this every year. You're saying this every year. I want to do this. I want to do this. Well, when are you going to do it? Well, or next year. Well, you know, you just bought a Porsche, but what's that doing for you? Now you're 120 grand in the hole, and now you can't start your business, right? So are you really in this to start a business, or you just want to look like you're in a business, right?
Yeah.
So there's that mindset too. When I made that step, and decided to pour more money into marketing, you know, I dumbed it down a little bit. You know, maybe you don't go out to eat as much, or maybe you don't go out to drink as much. I've never been a drinker, but you know what? I own a bar. Why would I be going out, right? So it's like, I'm thinking to myself, let's be a little bit more savvy about it, right? Yeah. So sacrifice. If you want it bad enough, you'll sacrifice.
Not for nothing, when I first started this company, I literally had 2 suit jackets. I just for like networking, like a nice like blazer and stuff like that. I literally had 2 suit jackets that I would swap out for networking events and stuff like that. And I was just like, okay, I'm not going to go drop all this money at Men's Warehouse. Let me just reuse the 2 that I have. Yeah. They didn't fit exactly that great. A couple of people made jokes, but I did what I had to do to try to go out there and grind, shake hands, get my little shitty business cards, and just network, because back then when we first started, I was moonlighting. I had a full-time job. And what pushed me full-time with this was I was the top rep at my company that I worked at. And to my understanding, middle management was like, okay, we have these top performers that are getting double or triple the commissions than a newbie. And somehow it was proposed. This is to my understanding.
That's my opinion!
This is to my understanding that somebody was like, hey, I gotta talk to you guys, the top performers, outside of the workplace, and said, hey, they're looking to chop. They're looking to cut. We're like, what? We're the top dogs. What are you talking about? And no, I felt like I was on top of the world. I made great money, and I had a 1-year-old, and I had a mortgage, car payment, all that stuff. And they brought me in a room and they were like, yeah, we're parting ways. I'm like, what? That, when you said work for yourself, control your own destiny.
100%.
Control your own destiny. And because of that acidic, that frustration and that feeling it gave me, I try to make sure that my staff does not experience that stress where if they make a mistake, they can dust themselves off. It's a little awkward talking about this because I got my staff right here, but like they can dust themselves off and learn from their mistakes. I'm the last, so I try not, don't get me wrong, some people have to get let go. But if someone's a hard worker and they're producing, I'll try to create an environment where that they don't have to know that that's the first option. If they make an honest mistake, they can learn from the mistake. Because I experienced corporate America where it was like you sneeze the wrong way, you're out. So to try to sum up what I was trying to get at was they literally pulled me in a room, let me go. I literally opened the door. And I was like, and on the board that week, I was the top rep in the whole entire company of 200 reps. Think about that for a minute. I'm not trying to flex. I'm not trying to brag. But out of 200 people that week, not all the time, I was always like hovering in the top 10. That week, I was number 1. And they still tossed me on my ass. And I was like, if I got tossed after doing that well, and I got a 1-year-old in the crib.
Yep.
It just pulled on every innate survival gene in my body. And I was like, that's it. We are going full time with the business because this was a side thing.
And you realize that you were just a number. And, you know, and I tell my new employees, every new employee I ever get, I told them, I said, when I hire someone and you come and work for me, I make it so that you will never be treated the way I was treated as a number, as an employee. We're a family, and you know, we're a family business. And I can take to what you said about sometimes people got to go. Sometimes there's toxicity that comes in and it's got to go because that'll ruin everything, right? Sometimes hard decisions need to be made. But if this was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah. And I think it was the reason. So like every job I had, and I've mentioned in other episodes, like when I was a kid, I worked at Papagino's and I would make sure that I was a kid. So I was, when I worked at Papagino's, I was obsessed. I was like Rain Man. I used to work the grill. If you saw me, you'd be like, can you come work for me? So I was so fast. I made a 12-second steak and cheese. Yeah. All I did was I turned up the grill a little higher than what corporate said. Now I'm making steak and cheeses twice as fast.
You're efficient.
Yeah, exactly. And I would set everything up and I would remember, okay, these people would come in for the Saturday lunch rush and I started to memorize what people wanted and I literally would have the order ready within 10 seconds because I saw them. I was like seafood pocket, spaghetti and meatballs, bop, 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 and I would be in the grill and my manager would go, how did you make this in 3 seconds? I'm like, I knew he was coming in at 11:30. And my manager was like, dude, don't do that.
No, it's efficiency.
Yeah, but I was like, I knew already. And there was a couple people that I actually pulled aside and I said, you're here every Saturday, you order this. Can I fairly say you're gonna be here every Saturday and order this at this time? And they're like, yeah, I work next door. I'll always order this. So I added that arsenal into my mindset. So I performed very high. So every job that I would have, I would take it very personally. And my work ethic, I was trying to be, so this job that I worked at, I had a mortgage, I had a 1-year-old in the crib and all this stuff. And I still got booted. And I'm like, if this is the case with this, I got to go full time with the business. Yep. I need to control my destiny. I can't have my family's, my family's survival in somebody else's hands. I said, if I did this good of a job and they still did that just to cut costs, I'm good.
And I tell new entrepreneurs, if you're going to step your foot into your own business, there's no plan B. There's only plan A. There's no plan B, because if you got plan B, your foot's already out the door. So you're not going to give it 110%.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's very, very important. Get your head straight before you get into a business, because there's been many times where, you know, I sat on that brewery floor and cried and be like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what am I doing? And you needed to feel that. You needed to be in that. You needed to be in the low. You needed to be in the high.
It's nerve-wracking.
It's very much nerve-wracking. But as you progress and then you start to learn to delegate, it gets easier. It never gets easy, but it gets easier, the process, when you can attract the right people. So when you emit good vibes, you attract good vibes. When you emit negativity is going to hang over you like a black cloud. And I tell a lot of people, like, I wouldn't say I lost, friends and acquaintances over the years, but they'll call me from time to time and say, hey man, where you been? You haven't hanged out? I go, listen guys, with all honesty, if I'm doing what you're doing every Friday night, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I go, I don't take it as a dig, but drinking around the fire isn't for me, man.
Yeah.
So it's a mindset. Surround yourself by 4 alcoholics, you'll be the 5th. You surround yourself with 4 millionaires, you'll probably be the 5th. So it's your choice. What do you want to be?
Yeah, that's super important. As I like to be around other people with kind of the same mindset. And I kind of like, I have a handful or more of clients that I jive with and I can talk more on a personal level with, and we can kind of talk about goals and what are we doing to try to do better. And I know you're part of like a group to inspire and do better, I'm assuming.
Yep.
But like with me, like I run a growth agency, so I specialize in helping small businesses grow. But in that process, I can network with people who most likely have a similar mindset, to find those people. Like if you go to a regular networking event, everybody's looking out for themselves. But when you meet a client that's trying to grow, you can kind of get down to earth and talk to them. Like, what are you trying to do? What are you doing here? Sometimes
you can get on their level. You can relate because you've been through it, so you understand it, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Just like when I got into my real estate endeavors, I never went to school for real estate.
Yeah.
I just hung around other real estate agents and hung around other entrepreneurs that would flip a house from time to time and just learn.
Yeah.
And it's really a basic principle. You don't have to go to college for this stuff. You just hang around with the right people and you'll learn. Because 99% of the time, an entrepreneur, if you come to him with questions and respectful questions and an open mind, they'd be so glad to show you what they did wrong so you don't have to pay that price and do it again.
Oh, yeah.
And I've done it. I've sat people down who showed me that they were doing it and they were in the mix of it and they're like, I'm jammed up here. I'm like, well, do this instead of that. And they're like, oh man, I never thought of that, right? You don't got to go to school for this. You just got to surround yourself with the right people.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I think who you hang around with is going to influence your life. And I try to be careful about that.
Your circle does get smaller.
Yes. Yeah. And it is what it is. I still care about my old high school friends, and they still check in with me and stuff like that. But I try to stay focused. I try to because this is our livelihood. We have to stay focused, right? Yep. There's no plan B. So you have to stay focused. So try to surround yourself with people, like-minded people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a business owner. It could be a shop-minded career person that wants to excel in their career. It doesn't have to necessarily be someone who owns their own business. You could talk to someone who works for Fidelity and they're killing it, and they're managing a ton of wealth for a bunch of people, and they're smart. They're sharp. They got a good network, and they're motivated to succeed. So it's not always. I know this is kind of an entrepreneur-focused show, but it's also you can network and surround yourself with other people that are really passionate about their career.
I think it boils down to mindset. It doesn't matter what they do, it's the mindset.
Exactly.
Right? You could hang out with an Olympic medalist who's got the mindset of success and a goal, who envisions their day every single day, who envisions, their track meet before it happens, or a basketball player, a pro basketball player that's going to envision the court right before the game. Same thing, entrepreneurs, when they wake up, they're going to see how their day is.
Speaking of vision, here's a question. Have you ever made a vision board?
Yes.
Wow.
So a vision board, I do every year.
Wow.
I do what they call a crystalline visualization process, where I get into a meditation state for about 60 minutes, and it's guided. And I actually live the future in my mind of what I want it to look like. And last year I did it, and the exactly 12 months, that vision that was actually recorded, written down, happened exactly where it was going to happen. Like it was, being on, the cliffs of Jamaica, being able to dive for 60 seconds at a time with the Jamaicans. The divers down there are phenomenal because they're free divers. They don't use tanks and they spearfish. Being able to be overseas for X amount of time, hands off my business, it all happened because I visualized it.
Wow.
And I made it happen, and it was a goal. And so Yes, visualization boards. One things I don't do is I don't do checklists, because what happens is with checklists that you're going to put too much on it, because we're high speed, right? So we go. We get that touch of the ADHD, you know, and so we're all over the map. So we'll put 100 things on that list, and what happens is at the end of the day or at the end of the week, and you don't get it all done, you're going to think you failed because you didn't get it all done. You just reached too far, right? So if I did do a list, I'll do 3 things. 3 of the most. I'll write down 10, and I'll cross out the 7 that I can't, that are non-negotiables. Okay, so the non-negotiables get done first, the first 3. And if I get those done, I'll move on. But other than that, I don't believe in checklists. But vision boards, yes.
Yeah.
It's something you can look at every day and say, okay, that's where I got to be. Am I putting things in place to make that happen? So
I stumbled.
Yeah. Well, you will. You know, life is a spiral staircase. Okay,
Yeah.
you're gonna go up, and you're gonna go up, and you're gonna go up, and then you're gonna come back down. It's a spiral staircase. It's up and down, up and down,
Yep.
up and down, right? But when you're all the way to the down, the only way you can look is up. So so just think of it as a spiral staircase. It's always going up. It's gonna come back down from time to time, but it's always up.
Have you ever went back and looked at it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I went back to mine, and I couldn't believe 90% of it actually happened. So like,
if you can think it, and you can believe it, it will happen.
It's nuts.
So the thing about the universe is that you can have everything you want. You just can't have it all at once. And the universe knows what it can give you and what it will give you, but it knows when you're ready to receive it. Now, if I did this, remember what at the earlier on in this podcast where I said I wish I knew about this type of program 10 years earlier?
Yeah.
I probably wasn't mature enough or knowing what to do with the growth. So I look back at it and go, okay, this was a blessing because I found the gift in this because I wasn't ready yet. I wasn't ready yet. I probably wasn't mature enough in my business to understand that. And when you can find the gifts and a failure that's where the growth really comes in, because it happened for a reason. And if you can speak it and you can see it into existence, high probability, there's a 51% chance that it's going to happen, right? I say 51 because, 50-50, but that 51% chance it will happen. And I prove that to myself. I speak that to a lot of young entrepreneurs, and they're like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. Look what you're saying. Look
there.
what you just said.
You said can't.
You can't.
Yeah.
Right. And another word I try to stay away from is I'll try. I don't like using the word I'll try because it's either I'll commit or there's other words around try, because try is your way out. That's a subconscious saying that I'm going to try, because if I don't do it, well, I said I would try. So it gives you a way out. No, that's not commitment. That's not how you grow. So try not to use the word try. And that's big in one of my groups that I'm in. If you say try, it's 50 push-ups, because it's like we don't try. We either commit or there's other words to go with it. I just don't use it.
Yeah. What I do is I take the steps. If I fall down, I dust myself off, keep trying, keep going. Like there's certain aspects within my company that I keep trying. And sometimes, there's sometimes some of the things that I want to accomplish.
You keep attempting it. So you keep attempting it. So when you attempt it and you fail, you take a step back and go, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's revise it. All right.
Exactly.
Do the same thing 2 or 3 times. The only person you got to blame is yourself after that. So.
We're not perfect. We're a small, scrappy, business, and we're successful in a lot of things. But there are some things that I want to turn that dial, and I've tried a variety of things, and just based on like if someone at a high level said, "Well, how do you do this?" I've done that, but the question is. And the thing, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but the thing that I'm trying to improve, I've tried vendor after vendor after vendor. It does require a vendor.
You didn't try. You attempted to use it.
You attempted to use
them, and it didn't work.
So all these different vendors, and like to help us with this, and it's disappointment after disappointment after disappointment.
Well, when you use the word try, you're losing the accountability of it. So one of the things that I tell entrepreneurs too, and especially when you have employees, it's far more important to own your mistakes. Say, you know what, that was on me. I failed on that. I'm leadership here. I'll own that, and we'll pivot, and we're gonna attempt to do something different.
Yeah.
One of the biggest words I tell people to stay away from is try. Try, because that eliminates your accountability. And when you're accountable for everything, you'll see you will skyrocket. You will skyrocket when you hold yourself accountable into a higher standard. That, like, when I make a decision for my business, one of the first things I think of, how is this going to affect my family? How is this going to affect my employees, right? Because that's important. What if I said something stupid on social media and we get canceled? I got eight employees, right, gone, right? So again, how does it affect my family, and how will this affect my employees, right? Because it's a huge responsibility when you're the owner of the company.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people are depending on you, right? You're the leader, you're the leadership, right? And that has one of the biggest roles, because if your employees are looking up to you, knowing that, hey, we might be in a slump right now, but we know Joe's got a plan, right?
Yeah.
Over COVID, a restaurant, that was the toughest time for all restaurants, right?
Yeah.
I made more money in COVID because I had a plan, and I had people that stayed and worked for me for free until the money started to come around, and they were all made whole. But again, that's the commitment I made to them. I'm like, hey, if you stick around, I'll make it whole. And they knew that. And that goes into integrity and doing it that way. So it's important to own your shit.
Yeah.
100%. Hold yourself accountable to a higher standard than your employees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. So just to kind of wrap up the show, like if someone is, so we got over the piece of breaking into and like doing it, taking that step. What, like, to kind of go past that and say, all right, you started a business, you're running it for a few years. How do you, and you can answer this any way you want, how do you try as a business, how do you try to distinguish yourself from others that you might consider to be competitors?
How do I consider myself?
Well, no. How do you distinguish yourself? Like, how do you make yourself more attractive than, let's say, your competitors? And you said to me a few competitor names and this and that.
To the customer or the employee?
Oh, no. I mean more of like, why would a customer go to your restaurant, go to your bar? Like, why? Like, what about your offering do you try to make unique to draw those people in, to make people go, wow, this is really cool? Like, let me preface it with this. So what I do is I try to be very different than my competition. I don't play the games that people in my industry do. I try not to nickel and dime them to death. You know that. I don't do that. I try to go the road less traveled. I try to be focusing on value. So when a client works with me, they go, shit, he actually gives a shit. Like, cause they can tell, right? They work with somebody else. They're like, oh, I sneezed on the 4th at 2:00. It was after 12 o'clock. That's a 30% upcharge. I'm sorry, I'm gonna send you an and it's this and that and that and this and that. And oh, I wore polka dot socks on a Saturday. I got to pay an extra $50. Insane. There's insane business models out there in the business growth industry. And I choose not to subscribe to that, because I believe in the blue ocean strategy is you separate yourself by driving so much value and being so different that you stand out. It makes your competition irrelevant. So some of the things that I've noticed about the way you distinguish yourself is the presentation, the quality of the food, just the vibe and the feel of the decor, the chalkboards in the bathroom.
I made it feel like people's home. I wanted to make it feel like you're coming to my man town, or hanging out in the garage, or having the whiskey barrels as tables.
There you go. Yeah.
What every guy would want in their living room, so to say. And the vibe is that we're not PC. So we learn our audience, and some people you can fuck around with and have fun with and be sarcastic with, but then there's some people you can't, and then you cater to them as you want. But I think it's because it's not stuffy. We're not corporate.
It's more of a welcoming, homey, like just a very chill vibe.
Yeah, and when you can bring people's guard down, especially when they've never been there before. Like, we've had people walk in when it was super busy, and I'll be like, hey, welcome to Border Brewery. My name's Joe. Welcome to my shit show. And they bust out laughing because they see how busy it is, but we're holding it all together. They chuckle and laugh, and it puts them at ease. So they're like, all right, this is a pretty cool place. Like this, we never got a response like that. You're not going to get a response like that anywhere else. I had another fella walk in one time. time, it was really windy out, and when he opened the door, it blew open, and his hair was all over the place. He goes, "Wow, it's windy out there." I go, "I know, your hair looks like shit," right? And again, and that guy's been a customer for the past 4 or 5 years now, right?
Just that one little thing.
That's all it is. You got to know your audience, though.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You don't want to do it. You're not going to do that to grandma, right? And, again, it's being outside the box, right? Corporate, it's different. They got to do this. They got to say this, and but also on the other hand too, like say you go to the 99s and there's a kid running amok all throughout the place, right?
Yeah.
The bartender's only allowed to say one thing to them. After that, if that kid's running around with knives in his hands, they're not allowed to say anything.
Wow.
I have no problem going to the customer and go, "Hey, we're not here so you can get drunk and we can babysit your kids. They're outside throwing rocks at cars. Like, either you go get them or here's your check." That's how it is. We hold the parents accountable because this isn't romper room. This is, it's
wow.
Right. So again, you gotta know your audience, right? You gotta know, you gotta have your boundaries and what you're gonna take and what you're gonna not. And it's the vibe. People know that they want to come and they want to take their dogs. They can take their dogs outside. We're good with that. We have dog bowls for them. Again, it's home. It's comfortable.
Very,
very comfortable.
It's a very inviting type of place. I would go there a gazillion times over and over again. It's just that when I walk into your place, and I won't name names, but I'm familiar with the other places because I like barbecue. Your place has a twist. It's like a...
Well, we're going to call you by your name. We're going to be, "Hey, what's up, Andy? Welcome back. Listen, we don't got burnt ends today. No, we don't got onion right now." Okay, right? When you greet people with a smile and they know that you remember them, like I remember people that I have conversations with years ago and they come back in, I go, "Hey man, did you come down here from Quebec like a couple?" Like, "Oh my God, you remember that, right?" So, when you can form that connection with people and they're like, "Wow, you remembered me," they
build that rapport.
Yeah, this is the rapport. Yeah.
So, anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, other than just if you're going to be an entrepreneur, mindset. Make sure if you're going to do this, you have the proper mindset and have mentors to hold yourself accountable. So I do tell people that as well. If you're gonna build a business, put your money in the media. Something I dragged my feet on for years. If I tell people I got $10,000 to start a business, I'm like, take $5,000 of that and start building out your web presence.
Oh, yeah.
And then if things are going good, get a mentor so you know what to do with it and don't do stupid shit. And
exactly.
hold yourself accountable.
I've seen people do insane things with some seed money that they get, and they just they apply it the wrong way.
10 years ago, I would have never thought I would have spent 15 to 20 grand on a professional mentor. Right?
Yep.
Tax deductible. It is a business expense.
Oh, yeah.
So business coaching, but hands down, profound.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for visiting the show. You're always welcome back. To the audience at home, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We are planning on having more guests. Be sure to subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and stay tuned till next time.